can. All right.
Okay, it's recording.
So just give me 1 minute. I'll be back. So I want to unmute myself to make a call.
Okay. Okay. I'm just looking over my notes.
Hi, Christina.
Hello. And this
Hi,
is
Ola.
Amanda, would you pronounce your last name for me so I make sure I have it correct?
Staniford.
Stanford? Okay.
Yeah.
And then we've got, is it Ronnie or Rainey?
It's Ronnie Joseph.
Ronnie Joseph?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just making some notes so I make sure I pronounce. Okay, and then we have, let's see, is Olud Ayo? That's a participant, but not a speaker. Is that correct? I think we have extra participants in already. I've never done the Zoom side where I'm a co-host. Usually,
Well, you're doing well. You're doing well.
but my friend said I talk a lot, so it shouldn't be a problem doing it. Okay, let's see. Has everyone here presented together before, or is this your first time meeting everyone?
It's my first time.
Okay, me too. Let's see. Just reading through notes. Okay, make sure I get all of our. Amanda, at the end of your session, are you saving some time for Q&A for people?
I can do it however, yeah, like that's fine. Is that what everyone else is doing?
I don't know what everyone, I'm not
What's
sure.
Ola? He had Q&A at the end for 10 minutes.
Oh, at the very end. Okay.
Yeah.
That works out great. Okay.
Yeah.
And then are you looking at your presentation about 10 minutes long, or how long are we?
Yes, that's what they've, well, I've pretty much 10 to 15 is what Ola said. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have Professor Nicolette in already, and Professor Nicolette, good to have you with us.
Hi there.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Yes,
Nice
you
to-
too.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Professor Nicolette, what's the pronunciation of your last name?
Roman.
Roman, okay. I live in an area that many people have the same last name spelling wise, and they all have a different pronunciation. So I always want to double check.
It's Rowan, man.
Let's see. So we have just a few more people joining us.
Yes, I think we still have like 2 or 3 more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Nicolette, is your presentation also 10 to 15 minutes, or are you a little bit longer with yours?
I may be a little bit longer.
Okay.
She'll be giving the keynotes. She's a keynote speaker, so you may need to give her a little bit more time. So after that, it goes straight to the Q&A. Depending on how you want to moderate, I won't time to lead her, but she is going to be the keynote speaker for today.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have the order of event with you?
Me?
Yeah, you have the order of event.
I do.
That's fantastic.
Very grateful I have a printer at home.
Yeah, so everything is set.
I'm gonna slip some socks on my feet real quick. It's a little chilly here still. We're just going into winter here.
Oh, okay. So whereabouts are you, Christina?
I am in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. I'm in Washington State.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah.
And I live along the coast, so you know, summertime for us is any weather over 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So,
Right. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Hello, I'm Ronnie Joseph. Hello.
Hi, Ronnie.
Hello,
Yeah.
Nicolette and Amanda
Yeah.
and
Nice
Ali.
to see you.
Hello,
You too.
everyone. It's a
Australia.
pleasure
Hi,
being
Ali.
here.
Hello.
so Ollie, would you pronounce your full name for me so I make sure I have it correct?
Yeah, sure. It is Ali Raza Khan.
Okay, just as I thought. So I want to make sure I have. And then Sharon, can you hear us okay, Sharon? Oh,
Yeah.
here you are, Sharon. would you-
Hello.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Oh,
Hello, everyone. Prof. Nick, so good to see you again.
You too?
Yeah.
Sharon, what's the pronunciation of your full name?
Omotosho.
Motosho. Oh, just like it's spelled.
Yeah,
Motosho, Dr. Sharon.
good.
Okay. And will we see the participants that are outside of the panel also joining? Hola.
But participants are allowed to join.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. So we're good to. We wait for Visha. Visha is the next person to come in, and after Visha, I think maybe you could give additional 5 minutes to wait for Visha. So then we start from there. That's up to you anyway. So I do not really want to dictate, but let me just get across to him that we are okay. Visha is in. He's in already. Okay. Oh, wait. He just came in now.
Hi.
Okay, Visha, good to have you here too.
Hi, good morning.
So we're good to go.
Okay, we've got Vishal. Would you pronounce your last name for me so I make sure I'm correct?
Yeah, it's Jan. Just like pretend the I isn't there.
Okay, Jan. Okay.
Yep.
And it's Vishal, is that
Vishal.
Vishal?
Thank you for asking.
And I hope I get everyone's pronunciation correct as we go through. I'm primarily only English speaking, and then I used to speak Spanish, so I might pronounce some of your names as if it was Spanish by default. Okay. Would you like us?
Neisha is in too. Have you spoken with her? Neisha?
I
Hello.
can.
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay. Is it Naisha?
Naisha Kimani.
Kimani. Okay. Okay. Naisha. And I see yours SLP.
Correct.
One of my best friends is an SLP.
Awesome.
Okay. Would you like us to give a few more minutes to allow people to join in case they're having technical issues? Ola?
Yes. Well, because of your time, we have 2 hours for this section.
Okay.
2 hours. We expect this to come to an end, and glad to have everyone. So everyone is in now. This for me is a special event. Like I said, is personal from my experience. Number one, Boys Future Boys Challenge is a global discourse where we dialogue on issues that concerns with the development of the boy child. And for me, I have a definition of who a boy child is. For instance, when we say who is a boy, how do you describe a boy or a boy child? So my definition is very simple. A boy child is a biological male that is immature, irresponsible, and lack a sense of judgment, and a little brother. So when you look at these qualities that describes a boy, you then know what we ought to do as an adult. So it means we need to develop this little brother to become a man who is sensible, who is mature, and maintains a good sense of judgment. And that is what brought about Boys Mentoring Advocacy Network, BMAN, that is anchoring these deliberations, this discourse across the globe. Our goal is to ensure that boys, when truly and well developed with these qualities, having a good sense of judgment, mature, he has been grown to become a big brother. This is when we have attained the development of the male child. But should we fail, we can have men who are still boys. How do I mean? Men who lack a sense of judgment. Men who are immature. Men who still live as a little brother. Boys without mothers. Why boys without mothers? In my years of practice as a boys advocate, I've seen discussions that centers on boys in father absent homes or boys without father figure. It's been a global deliberations across all academic institutions, social discourse or dialogue. But little or less is being deliberated upon when it comes to boys growing up without mother figures. And I do not know why. Not until recently, when I take a look at my life personally, that I realized when I was a teenage boy, my mother did separated from my father while in the boarding house. I remember when I got home and I went to my mother's bedroom, I could not find her there. It appears the world collapsed. And for 2 decades of my life, I couldn't put the puzzles together. It affected me so much, was abused. I was like a man, a boy without direction. Did I not have a father? Yes, I do have a father. But he was very alcoholic. Never bought me a pant. And he had 17 of us. So he wasn't wicked to any one of us. It was just because he didn't take up his responsibilities. So our mother, having 9 children and leaving them behind without any woman to take care of us. So we were just wandering around like a wanderer who had no hope. But faith had its place in me. And that drew my attention back to Today, there are still some boys who are in my shoes. The second experience, my immediate younger sister. Shortly after my mother left, she was in the boarding house as well. But because, please, can you, I need to meet Aisha now. So,
Yeah, if you
yeah,
think,
yeah. I think probably maybe I should meet everybody. Yes, then I can mute. Okay.
I can unmute now, yes.
So she was 13 and she was in the boarding house. Shortly after her mother left, she got pregnant at 13. And she was very angry with herself and with everybody around her. She had the baby, but never wanted to mother that child because of the trauma involved in the process when she got pregnant. So all through life, that young man grew up. He's 31 years old now, but never had any connection with his biological mother, my sister. And each time I approached my sister, how about this, your son? He said, I'd rather take a poison than to get him into my home. Both were affected. My sister was affected because her mother left at an early age. That's another discussion. Probably maybe girls without mothers will come up someday. And I think women seated here, you can take that up for a different discussion. So that's affected that young man to date. He never had a mother that was involved in his life. Yeah, I think I have 1 more minute left to wrap up this. The third experience was very simple. About 2 months ago, I drove to a mechanic garage and I met this young boy who is 11. Matthew is his name. He was beaten and he was being punished. So I asked, what was it that this young boy has done? And I was told he was just wandering around. He never came to the garage for the day to his master, and the master caught him and brought him, and he was serving severe punishment. So I said, look, I was standing in place of his punishment for him to be pardoned. And they considered me as a big man, and he was pardoned. So I called him to a corner. I brought him into the car. What went wrong? He said I was hungry. My father is a bus conductor, and my mother left the two of us to marry another man. And now I'm trekking to the house where our mom lived with us before she left us. Perhaps I can see a familiar face, or I can beg food or beg something to go just to eat. So I brought her money and I gave him food to eat, bought some food for him. I'm happy to inform you today, Matthew is back in school. I got him a foster mother who I paid 10,000 Nigerian money as a kind of a token to help me take care of Matthew. All of this brought about the experiences. The fourth experience on the final note is a young man who lost his mother 6 years ago. Each time I invite him for programs for the boys mentoring, he always gives this excuse. I am the mother in the house and I don't have time because I had to watch over my brother and do some house chores. So this really affects us as men. I cannot tell you the kind of insecurity I felt, the kind of challenges he's going through, and all of this experience. So this is why this topic is being brought up, for us to do a justice, a dialogue around this. And I'm happy that we're going to have an exciting time together. With all that said, I want to thank all of you for being here. And I want to thank you for your support, how we can get things for these boys, maybe this Yuletide season. Many thanks and God bless.
Thank you so much, Ola. I appreciate you. I didn't realize I was muted again.
No, no, no.
Sorry.
I unmute everybody now, so you can take over from there. So.
Ola, thank you so much. And I appreciate your perspective of not only being a child that didn't have a mother in his life, but taking that and empowering it and doing work for other boys that don't have that and helping us create a better world. I really appreciate that perspective.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. And I didn't even take a minute to thank everyone for being here today. I know everyone has busy schedules, and we all appreciate you attending this exciting conference and the time and dedication you have to the children of our world. Thank you so much, everyone, from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing for our future. And Ola, I don't know if everyone was aware that you're also the founder of Boys Mentoring Advocacy Network and the wonderful work that you're doing. We really appreciate that. Thank you. Next, we would like to turn the time over to Ali Raza Khan. He's a global ambassador of Boys Mentoring Advocacy Network. Thank you. And are you ready? I think, can you unmute yourself or do I need to? Oh, there you go.
Thank you very much for this warm welcome. I feel absolutely honored. So they say nobody on earth can ever love you more than your parents. So first of all, let us all thank God for this beautiful occasion where we can all together proclaim the joy of spreading peace, the joy of loving one another, and the joy of acknowledging that the poorest of the poor are our brothers and sisters. As we have gathered here to thank God for this gift of peace. Before I move on and commence my speech, I'd like to thank everyone who's a part of this conversation, who's part of this webinar. It feels absolutely amazing to be sitting in front of you all. And this is Ali Raza Khan. I am a 14 years old 9th grade student, proudly representing the land of hospitality and spirituality, Pakistan. I am a host, writer, podcaster, youth activist, and also one of Pakistan's youngest motivational coach. I'm also a national award winner and a nominee for Asian International Excellence Awards. Having said that, I am also deeply spiritual and I love insightful conversations, honest reflections, and new ideas. I truly believe in hustling hard and being kind. There's a lot that I am figuring about life, and I'm excited to share my mental, emotional, and personal growth with you all. I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude once again to BMAN and especially Mr. Ola for trusting me to become BMAN ambassador from Pakistan. Working in association with BMAN is no less than an absolute honor. I am really honored that I am here today with so many energetic, peace-loving people. I'm really happy that the reason for which I am here is going to be heard, and that is boys from neglectful mothers. Should there be a penalty for such mothers? What do you guys think? Let's find out. BMAN, I think, is a big opportunity for us to speak to the world and to speak to people and to connect and interrelate and work in interdependence to achieve big goals. It's a big opportunity for us to speak to the world that women are facing many problems and many issues. And now it is time to think about the future generation. It is our duty. And I'm hopeful that change will come. One day we will see every woman getting quality education and every child getting quality education. Our basic rights. But for that, we need to work together. We need to make it our target. We need to make it our objective of life. I have promised myself that I will fight for the rights of women and children. I consider this my duty to fight for their rights. And I think every one of you, I think, are leaders in your own realms, in your own fields. And every one of us has the potential to bring a change locally and internationally. I want to see every child in school uniform holding their books and pens. If you don't do anything for the women and children, then who will? If we want to protect our upcoming generation, we have to think about their education and equal rights. Dear brothers and sisters, today in half of the world, we see rapid progress and development. However, there are many countries where millions still suffer from the very old problems, problems of war, poverty, and injustices. We still see conflicts in which innocent lose their lives and children become orphans. We see many people becoming refugees in Syria, Gaza, and Iraq. In Afghanistan, we see families being killed and suicide attacks and bomb attacks. Many children in Africa do not have access to education because of poverty. And as I said, we still see girls who have no freedom to go to school in the north of Nigeria. Many children in countries like Pakistan and India are still deprived of their right to education because of social taboos, or they have been forced into child marriage or child labor. It is not the time to tell the world leaders how important education is. I think it is the time, because they already know it. Their own children are in good schools. Now it's time to call them to take action for the rest of the world's children. So we ask the world leaders to unite and make education their first and top priority. Leaders must seize this opportunity to guarantee a free, quality primary and secondary education for every child. Why is it that countries which we call strong are so powerful in creating wars, but are so weak in bringing peace? Why is it? Why is it that giving guns is so easy, but giving books is so hard? Dear brothers and sisters, the extremities were and they are afraid of books and pens. The power of education frightens them. They are and they are afraid of women. The power of the voice of the women frightens them. That is why they're blasting schools, because they were and they are afraid of change, afraid of equality that we will bring into our society. We have seen First World War, we have seen Second World War, and I think that the Third World War is coming, but I believe we must stop it now. We don't want to see a Third World War, and the best way to fight against this war is education. Because as we can see that children and women are suffering from extremism, they are suffering from extreme labor and trafficking. They're also suffering from cultural norms and traditions. And there are many other issues. And I think education is the best way to solve these issues. People think, how would education help all of this? Learning physics, maths, chemistry, memorizing big tags? How will it help us socially? But let me tell you, education is not about learning a particular subject. Education gives us a wider view of the world. It teaches us how to live our lives, and most importantly, what are our basic human rights and how to live. And I feel one thing I want to share with you all, the greatest destroyer of peace today is the cry of the innocent unborn child. For if a mother can murder her own child in her own womb, what is left for you and for me to kill each other? They say, even if mother could forget her child, I will not forget you. I have carved you in the palm of my hand. Even if mother could forget, but today millions of unborn children are being killed and we say nothing. We don't raise our voices. We don't use the platforms, the sources we have, we don't foster anything. In the newspapers, you frequently read numbers of this one and that one being killed, this being destroyed, but nobody speaks of the millions of little ones who have been conceived to the same life as you and I, the life that is just so pathetic, that is just awful. They're living the worst of their lives. They are the poorest nations. They are afraid of the little one. They are afraid of the unborn child. And the child must die because they don't want to feed one more child, to educate one more child. The child must die. Every person with a religion, you practice in peace. Every skin color, every mindset, every lifestyle, and every heart will be equal, exalted, and united in peace if we all consider ourselves equal. No matter our backgrounds or ethnicities, our caste, creed, and social status, at the end, ultimately, we are all breathing the same air. Disease will still be among us, but we will combat it together. Disaster will still strike us, but we will survive together. We will embrace death together, and no more will we murder one another. No child will be left uncared for. No family stand above his brothers and sisters claiming superiority, but we will move forward together. Soldiers will never again have to lift their weapons to take another man's life while praying for their own. Worshippers may call out to their God among those who call out to another. While I was working on my notes, this topic is something very close to my heart. And of course, it's very emotional. And while I was writing my notes, there's something that I wanted to share. That is, we need no Napoleon, no Alexander, none of those type. We want prophets of peace. Let our mother and sister come forward and save the world from total destruction, because without them, there would be no world peace. A time will come when we shall find our existence in danger. And I must say, I wrote this quote right here in front of me. Peace does not mean an absence of conflicts. Differences will always be there. Peace means solving these differences. I repeat again, peace means solving those differences through peaceful means, through dialogue, education, knowledge, and through human ways. If you were emotionally or physically neglected as a child, it can be a difficult journey to healing. Neglect can be a hard thing to put your finger on, especially emotional neglect. Neglected children often don't realize they are being neglected at the time and can internalize the pain and loneliness and think it is their fault. They're often told they are too sensitive or selfish if they try to get their needs met. Parents with little empathy often neglect their children and don't even realize it, while there are also parents who don't care. Either way, the child grows up wondering about their own self-worth and value, as Mr. Ola was talking about. Traumatic experiences like abuse and neglect have an adverse effect on children's brain development. I did a research and I found out as the child matures, the developing brain changes in response to the child's environment. Bruce Perry, an authority on brain development, actually said that children in crisis had done pioneering research in this area. Their research shows that a child's brain develops in sequence, just like the other aspects of the physical development. And they said the sensitive brain of an infant or young child is malleable. Powerful experiences alter the functioning of an adult brain. But for children, especially young children, traumatic events may change its very framework. Authorities must seize this opportunity to protect the neglected children and give them a healthy, safe environment under the absence of their mothers. we must not blame anyone for this negligence. It is no one's responsibility, or no one's responsible for that. What about those children in Africa who lose their parents almost every day in wars or conflicts or any other reasons? So I'd like to conclude my speech with this oath, which I wrote. Where there is hatred, I may bring love. That where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness. That where there is discord, I may bring harmony. That where there is error, I may bring the truth. That where there is doubt, I may bring faith. That where there is despair, I may bring hope. That where there are shadows, I may bring light. That where there is sadness, I may bring joy. If not now, when? If not you, who? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ollie. I appreciate your perspective from a much younger age than myself, and your passion for the advocacy of education and the importance of, as we bring women up, they can bring up young men, and how we need to bring up women along with men to have us all work together. I really appreciate that perspective. Now I'd like to turn the time over to Vishal Jan, who is the Director of Business and Program Development with the Ever Forward Club.
Great. Thanks, Christina. And thank you, Ali Raza, for those beautiful words. And it's definitely intimidating to see someone, so young, just with such a strong voice and speaking out. So props to you, my friend. For those here again, my name is Vishal Jan. I have had kind of an interesting windy career path. I started out of school as a management consultant, doing the big corporate thing, made a little bit of a pivot to higher education and worked as a career advisor for undergrads, and now work with a nonprofit that does work to support youth, and in particular underserved young men, with communities that are supportive, with opportunities that are productive. And it feels really cool to do this work. We've also had the privileges of some really great education. I studied business in my undergrad at Emory University here in America, and a master's in education at Harvard University here in America. And all of these experiences, I think, have connected me to this topic. But at the same time, I think this topic is deeply personal to me. And so I think that is where I will maybe start my remarks, and I'll do my best to keep it brief. So a little bit about how I identify. I think that context is important. I identify as a heterosexual male. I identify as Indian American, and I grew up in the American South, which I think all colors my experiences. I mentioned I grew up in a large Indian community in the American South, and my direct family is my mom and my dad and my younger brother and myself. So growing up, when I was 8, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. About a year later, her and my dad called us into their bedroom and let my brother and I know. My brother's younger than I am by 2 years. They let us know it was terminal, and that she wouldn't be able to make it. And about 2 years after letting us know that, she unfortunately passed due to complications of both that breast cancer as well as brain tumor. And I think about that experience and this topic of boys that growing up without mothers, and at first I think I was like, okay, that is me. I identify with that piece. But then I thought about what does that mean to me, and what does that mean as a sort of message and a conversation to think about. And I think there are maybe 3 things that I think about for myself, and then 3 things that I think we could be doing to support a population like this. I think for myself, there are a few things that I think about. One is that although we lost our mom at a young age, I was not at a loss for motherly influences in my life. I mentioned a large Indian community, and whether that was dinner parties, whether that was at friends' houses, my friends' moms, my family's moms were my mom, in that way. And so I learned so much about just what they had to bring to the table, their life experiences from that. I think that's one. 2, I have a really strong and inspirational father who, as a result of having to be the only parent in the household, I think had to straddle both lines as parents. And maybe the clearest example I could think of, and maybe some of you relate to this, is a dinner party. So we would go to dinner parties, and often it was very clear, right? The men would go and sit on one side at a table, drink whiskey, play cards. The women would be in the kitchen, cooking, being ready to bring food out. And for my dad, it started to look pretty different, especially after our mom passed. He would open the front door and he would beeline for the kitchen, bringing my brother and I along, and he would jump in and help cook. And he would tell everyone, like, don't let Vishal, and my brother's name is Tejas, don't let Vishal and Tejas go and play with their friends unless they've helped out in the kitchen. Or he would often go and sit at the wives' table and make conversation, try and bring them along over. And so I think I had this really great example of a parental figure and a male maybe straddling both traditional roles because he had to growing up. And I think the last thing I think about is this. I think the loss of my mother and what that impact was has sort of guided my own career journey, whether it was, in college, I thought a lot about sexual assault and prevention and response, and sort of moving my way from corporate to now in work that maybe aligns a little more closely with working with gender. And so I say that to say, I think my experiences are unique in their own ways, but I think that an impact of a loss like this, of a childhood like this, has driven me to have some pretty impactful experiences and also guiding experiences too, to take me where I am. So, this topic is deeply personal to me, but when I was thinking about what to say when Ola kindly asked me to join, I sort of asked myself, like, so what? Like, what do we do with the fact that this is a reality for many people? And I think there are three things that we could be doing. One is that we should intentionally make spaces for boys to talk and feel. And I think that was a reason I joined this work at the Ever Forward Club here. Growing up, I think people really avoided talking to me about us losing our mother, whether it was out of a fear of a discomfort, out of awkwardness, out of maybe a sense of triggering. But because of that, I didn't talk about it. I didn't think that it was okay. And so I didn't really become comfortable with unpacking maybe what the impact that had for me. And I think looking back, creating those spaces probably would have been quite valuable. And I think, as we know, and I think as Ali Raza really put it, like, kids think deeply, kids feel deeply, and we should give them spaces to talk about it. The second thing I think we can be doing is creating a network of motherly influences. I think, whether you were someone like me that lost their mother at a young age, whether you grow up in a family with two fathers, whether you grow up in a family with a mother who either may not have the time or may only have a limited view of what it means to be a mother, we can't put all our eggs in one basket. And so I think we need to be thinking about these influences, whether it started through your communities, whether it started through your schools, whether it started through our social support systems. We need to be providing that with more than one touch point. And I think I really come back to this piece of not putting our eggs in one basket. And then the last thing I think about is, as adults, owning and taking the responsibility for our influences. As was mentioned before, kids adapt to their environment, and whether we acknowledge it or not, kids are looking to their parents, kids are looking to their adults as examples and models of what it means to be an adult later in life. I know I've commonly heard the phrase that either I don't want to be like my parents or I do want to be like my parents. And instead of maybe hoping that our kids turn out okay, maybe we need to take a better stance and take the responsibility of knowing that our actions have an impact on others, and the way that we carry ourselves have an impact on others. And whether you are a mother, a father, an uncle, a sister, a brother, whatever that means for the kids out there, understanding that what you do carries and what you do is noticed. And yeah, so when I think about the three things that we could be doing, I think it is creating spaces to talk and feel, it is creating a network of influence, and it is taking responsibility for the actions that we model as adults. So thank you for having me here. Thank you all for your time and for sharing what I'm sure to be is really beautiful insights on a topic that is deeply personal to me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Vishal. I appreciate you looking at your individual perspective, and then how can we use that, and as a society, what are 3 key things that we could all do to help the children move forward that don't have a mother in their life, and the importance of that community and how we're gathered as a community to do that. I really appreciate that perspective. Next, I have the pleasure of introducing Naisha Kimani, and she is a speech and language pathologist, and she's here to share her perspective and some great information for us. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Christina, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone on the panel. And I appreciate Mr. Olaf for inviting me to be a part of this panel. And I've enjoyed hearing what I've heard so far from our 2 speakers, Ali and Mr. Vishal. Thank you for that insight. As Ms. Christina stated, my name is Naisha Kimani, and I'm a speech language pathologist in the United States in Virginia. And I work with children in the schools, and I've seen the aspects of communication disorders for preschool all the way through high school. And most of the individuals that I've had the opportunity to impact, they come from homes where there may not be a father in the home, but there are individuals who are without a mother as well. And it really impacts them in all aspects of their development, being able to communicate effectively, and just being able to be themselves and to be a normal child when they should be able to do that. But instead they have to worry about some of the basic things that we don't necessarily worry about, like food and shelter and just where they're going to sleep, and just the various aspects before they can even concentrate on the things that we expect in the education field of being able to learn. And of course, reading and math is very important, but there are other things that have to come first before they can even get to that point. And practical ways for launching an advocacy program for the boys without mothers, it takes a lot of planning and being able to collaborate with positive individuals that are trusting and nurturing for these young boys, so that they can be in a structured environment where they can express themselves and be heard and feel safe in doing that. And just being able to have the experiences that typical children have that they may be missing out on, and just maybe partnering with other nonprofits and maybe weekly or monthly having groups where they interact on a smaller level, and then coming together to practice those skills on a larger level in a structured environment, so that they can develop the emotions and those relationships that they lack, because it's hard for them to trust, and just building that self-esteem and just the overall physical and mental well-being. It's just so much to be said about this topic, and there's a lot to learn with it. And I have a passion for young ladies because of my life experiences, and I was forced to be grown up at a young age due to difficulty at home, but it shaped me into the person that I am, and I have a passion for fostering that relationship with young girls. And I'm in the process of starting a nonprofit, and it's still in the works, and I think things happen for a reason. And I had no idea about Ola and all that he's done, and our lives shape us and help us to help someone else. When we go through trials and tribulations, we're able to most times hopefully deal with it, and then we find ways as you get older to want to give back and reach back to help those that may be at a place that you were. And may not necessarily have the resources or individuals in their lives. And I thank God every day for being here and the experiences that he's placed me in, because it makes me who I am today. And I look forward to being a part of this discourse and finding ways to be a resource for the BMAN program. And that's all that I have for today. Thank you all for allowing me the time to speak, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Naisha. I really appreciate the perspective of you as a speech and language pathologist and how that impacted a young age affects your communication skills. And then in turn, that can impact your interactions with people for the rest of your life. So I appreciate the work you're doing to help those kids get that strong foundation so that they can go back out into the world and help be productive members of society and help others in turn. I really acknowledge and appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to turn the time over to Ms. Amanda Staniford, CEO of Coaching and Kids Life Academy. And then if you could take a moment to introduce yourself and take it away. I think you're muted, Amanda.
There we go. Thank you so much, Ola, for being part of this. A big part of what I have done up until now, I've had this dream to go global with what I do. So having the opportunity to be here with all of you today is a real blessing. So thank you for that. I am in Christchurch, New Zealand, and I have a teaching background. I have 3 sons of my own and a daughter. And I am just very, very passionate about children and growth and expansion. So much so that I've given myself the title expansion coach, because I feel that that is my role in life. So in my very first year teaching, I knew that I had a passion for what I was doing, because I had a young man in my class who ultimately, when he sat on the mat, I knew initially that he had some issues. And yet in his file, there was nothing at all to say that, and he'd had 3 teachers before me. So I went on a mission to find out as much as I could, and long story short, he blossomed, this young man, and it led me into wanting to expand every child as an individual. And so my teaching career has involved a lot of learning outside the classroom. So I've done a lot of things like neuro-linguistic programming, educational kinesiology. I then went on to America and did a life coaching course over there, and I handpicked it because I wanted something that had a very spiritual base to it. So I started Kids Life Academy. I have a drama and an arts background as well, and I created a drama curriculum that teaches emotional intelligence to children via the drama, and I just found that a really good vehicle for empowering children. So things have moved on a little bit, and I've just completed my first book, and it's Conscious Heart-Centered Parenting. So today, on the topic that we're talking about, I really wanted to take it from the base of what I've used for that particular book. So for me, parenting, and as a mum, so a little bit of a story for me. So my 3 boys are my eldest children, and then my daughter is the youngest. So when my daughter wasn't even 2, my husband and I separated. So a good portion of my children's lives, I've parented them on my own. I did have a wonderful partner, but he passed away with cancer. So I suppose for my children, they've had 2 father figures removed from their life, and they've had mum as the stable influence. But as a parent, parenting boys initially. So in my family, it's only my sister and I. So I really didn't expect to have boy after boy after boy. It kind of wasn't in my vision. I didn't foresee that. However, all my children are individuals. All the children that I've ever taught in a classroom are individuals. And while, you know, we all have differences and there are some traits that are more masculine and some more feminine, I like to go from that angle, first of all, of everybody being an individual. So in the conscious heart-centered parenting approach that I've taken, it's all about giving our children the best possible start that they can have. And that starts with connecting with our children. And the way I look at it is we are people coming together. So if you're parenting a son, that's two people involved. Well, in my situation, it was anyway, two parents, maybe three parents, three individuals involved, but they're all human. So it's not coming from a domineering place of the parents being in control and the child having to come under that umbrella, but more we're on an even footing because we're both individuals. We've both come into this world, and I've been a child and now I'm a parent, and the same thing's going to happen to that child that I'm parenting. So how can I empower the child that I have right here in front of me to become the best possible version of themselves that they came here to be? And that's where I take everything from. So communicate, my topic is what are the qualities that make a great mother? And for me, it's communication, because we all, and I mean, it's already been discussed here about the emotional side of life, and we all face hurdles in our lifetime, and how do we overcome those hurdles? So communication is the key to everything, and it's the taking the time, it's having the patience, it's being a really good listener with great eye contact so that child knows that they have 100% of your attention right then and there. And it's about choosing your moments in your parenting decisions. So when something's happening with your sons, it's that step back, it's that self-reflective, is this the right time to go in and deal with this? Or am I going to let them learn a little bit of independence in this situation and then review it, maybe unpack it with them later on? So communication is when you are present and yet you're present in everything else that's going on as well. And if anything, in those, I call where I am in New Zealand, 4 is a reasonably large family. Obviously, Ola has experiences with families a lot larger than that. But when you're parenting and you're dealing with a particular situation, maybe with your son, but then the other siblings are coming in as well, it's like, how do I deal with all of that at once? And what I noticed with having 3 boys is there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of bustle, a lot of physicalness that happens with boys. And how do I give each child the individual attention that they need right then and there? And that's about me. It's about you as the parent, as the mum. How well adjusted are you to what's happening? Where's your self-belief in yourself and your parenting decisions? Because if it's wavering, then your children are going to pick that up as well. So it's my belief that we are all spiritual beings having a human experience here, and we all vibrate at different energy levels. And so even if we're not using our words, our children are picking up our energy. So if chaos is breaking out in your household at this particular time, your children are looking at you. Are you in a chaotic frame as well? Or are you in a calm and grounded space where you actually have control over what's happening and you're thinking into the next few minutes or the next hour as to how you're actually going to deal with that? So I think communication is a huge one. Self-belief in yourself is another really key aspect to creating really good outcomes for your children. Organisation is always huge, and particularly with boys because they're busy and they've got lots of things happening. So keeping a schedule going, keeping them independent for their own resources and time as well is something that I used to spend quite a bit of time on, because we as mums want our sons to grow up and be great members of households and families as well. And if everything is done for them, which is, you know, one role model that can happen, they don't have the skills to take that into their own families. If they are wanting to be a bit more organised, but the role modelling simply isn't there from you as mum or dad, then that's not going to be helpful either. But even a step further than that, how can you empower your boys to take a little bit more independence with their learning as well? So that everything ties in together, obviously, and with that I used to communicate to them. So what do you think you need to do today when you've got this, this, and this happening? You know, how do you think you might go about getting organised with that? So putting the emphasis and the power as they grow older onto them is really important as well. What else have I got here? As a mum and a parent, one of the key things I feel is self-evaluation. So I think my parenting skills got honed the most when I simply went, that was a disaster, that did not get handled the way I wanted it to get handled, or oh my gosh, that was amazing, I didn't expect that outcome. But reviewing it each time, so how can I make that better? How come that did work? What could I do next time to be a bit more prepared for something like that? So I never used to let anything just go and be. It was always, once again, that expansion thing of how can we be better, do better, and achieve better and role model better, so that my children would pick up those skills and then they'd be doing the same for their friends at school. So it's a cyclic kind of effect. Mums are very, very important in any household, and in order to be our best, we have to take care of ourselves. And I think that's the other important thing to address is, as mums, we do a lot and we put a lot of people ahead of ourselves, and often we can be at the bottom of the pile. But when we do that, we're not there at our best for our children either. So in terms of qualities of a good mother, I would say take care of yourself. That was one thing that took me quite some time to work out. But your energy has to be peak, particularly if you're dealing with a number of children at home. And if you're rested and well and you've got some enjoyment in your own life, then you're going to be able to cope with the daily demands of parenting. Yeah, so just some key takeaways from me in terms of qualities for mums. And I know there's such a range of, you know, that for some of you, you'll be like, well, what I'm dealing with, you know, with the families that I work with or the area that I live in, you know, the types of things maybe that I've described are luxury type things. but we're on a global platform, and I think it's really important to share knowledge from all over the globe about what's happening, because I know here in New Zealand there's you know, some families that are really, really struggling, and once again it's to do with education and knowledge around what is good parenting. So I think anything that we can bring to the table from our particular area has got to be helpful. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And I appreciate you reinforcing that as a parent, we empower our child to be the best possible person. I think all of the great information you shared, we can apply that to not just our children that we're raising, but all of the children that we work with, because we can get all of those skills in working with children if they don't have a mother figure in their life. I really appreciate that. Next, I'd like to turn the time over to Ronnie Joseph, consultant, certified success coach, mentor, and president of the Kindness Basket. And I think my screen changed around. Are you here? Let's see. Did we lose someone, Ola? Do you see Ronnie trying to join us again? I don't see. You're muted, Ola.
Let me get across to her briefly. Maybe we'll move to the next person while she can still come back again. So
we'll come back. I know she was right there and then disappeared. So
maybe we should just give her.
Okay.
Let me just contact her while you invite the next person.
I'll go on to Dr. Sharon Omotoso, and I'm hoping I said that correctly as you introduced yourself to me earlier. Gender and media expert, and I would like to turn the time over to you, share a little bit about yourself, and then to speak.
All right, thank you so very much. I'm so delighted to be here. This is a discussion that is very important and key, and have listened so far to all the speakers. I can only say that there is so much that I have learned from all the speakers, and there is so much that we also need to do. And I want to thank BMAN for putting this together. And this is one discourse that goes unnoticed a lot of times. And I want to say that we will continue to work together and to see to it that these issues gain attention and they are addressed. And one thing that has come to my notice from all the presentations so far is the fact that there are ways in which women's problems and women's issues complicate issues for other members of the family. I mean, most of the speakers have said one thing or the other about the plight of the mothers. And so we cannot just talk about boys who are motherless without referring to the problems or the challenges that the mothers might have had in the process. And I want to say first that, okay, maybe I should introduce myself. I'm Sharon Omotosho. I'm a woman of many parts on the campus at the University of Ibadan. I coordinate at the Institute of African Studies. Out of the campus, I am director of the Center for Applied Ethics and Political Communication in Africa. That's SEPOCOM Africa. And one of the focus areas of SEPOCOM Africa is masculinities. And we've been looking at, we've been working on the project Reclaiming Masculinities for sustainable coexistence. And we've been working with WADOC, that's the Center for Women's Research and Documentation Center. And what we've been doing with them is to highlight the fact that women's problems, girls' problems will always spill over and cut across into the issues of boys and men. And that is one reason why SEPOCOM Africa has picked that as our focus area, and we are working closely with BMAN on this project. And I want to say that personally, I grew up with my dad and my mom. And along the line, my mom had to go back to school and she had to leave me with my grandmom. And in the process, I learned so much from my grandmother. I practically grew up with her. Even when my mom returned, I still preferred to stay with my grandma. And as I grew up, even after marriage, I discovered that I preferred to call my grandma mom and my mom grandma because she's grandma to my children. And that was amazing because the children kept asking me, why do you call our grandma? I mean, why do you call our grandma your grandma and your own grandma your mom? But I couldn't explain it because I think I have grown to have this very strong bond with my grandmother. And so I cannot agree less that the role of mothers in the life of children is very important. Now, this takes me to a particular song some years back. There's this Nigerian artist, Sonny Okosun, and that's the first song I ever heard about motherless children. You say, motherless children, motherless babies everywhere. We have to try and stop this great disaster. Give a little help to the motherless child. That little help will make them smile forever. And I mean, it tells a lot about the plight of motherless children. But not all cases of motherless children or motherless boys stem from neglect. There are instances like Vishal mentioned, the mom was sick and she had to leave them. There are instances, of divorce. There are instances of circumstantial hatred, like Ola mentioned. There are instances of walk-in and walk-out moms. And then we have instances of economic-based motherlessness. Some moms will have to travel abroad to go and look for greener pastures, and then they have to leave the children somewhere else, and practically the children become motherless. So there are several reasons. And I also noticed that in the recent trend of gay marriage, you also find out that some children become motherless because they were adopted by gay parents. And that is subject to lots and lots of discussions from the academic platform. And so it's a variety of issues that can come up to turn a boy to a motherless boy, let me put it that way. And overall, when we talk about mothering advocacy, because that's what I'm expected to talk about, practical ways to launch mothering advocacy for boys without mothers. So when we talk about mothering advocacy, there are 4 R's that I'm looking at. One is reuniting absent mothers with sons. So that is an instance. Our intention could be to reunite absent mothers. In that case, the mother is probably somewhere and the child is in another place. That could be one. The second R is replacing lost mothers. The third one is reinventing motherhood. And the fourth one is reenacting the ideal of mother-son relationship. So with the issues of motherlessness comes questions that I put in 5 different ways. I try to relate them, like Amanda said, communication is important. And I try to put them within the communication scope, the 5 W's and H. And what am I doing with that is that we need to look at, how to set the tone for any mothering advocacy that we will set up. Meaning that there is no one cap fits all for this mothering advocacy. And the intention here for any mothering advocacy is to create an emotional space where the mother lives as a reality to the boy child. And so I begin with the question, who? Who is the mother? I think that's an important question. Does she have the capacity to love the child? By this, I mean, does she have financial, emotional, mental capacity? There are instances where the mother, for example, has health challenges, mental health challenges, and she cannot be the mother to this boy child. These are things that we need to consider. Who is the mother? Then I want to look at where, the question where. Where is the mother? Is she alive or she's dead? Is she in the country or outside the country? Is she remarried or single? These are questions that we need to ask before we set up any advocacy for boys who have no mothers. When did she leave the boy? It's an important question. At what point? Was it at birth? Was it at the teenage life? Was it at what point? We need to know when did she leave the boy, and why? We need to ask, why did she desert the boy? Why will the mother desert our child? I heard her say, quoting that part of the Bible that says, even if a mother forgets a suckling child, I mean, that's an extreme. You have a child who sucks from your breast and then you forget the child. It's an extreme, but that happens. And so we need to ask, why? Why did she desert the boy? The circumstances surrounding the issue, it's very important. For instance, if we have a child, if we have a mother who is consistently being abused by the father, in the African community, most times they will tell us that for whatever reason, we have to stick to, an abusive marriage, if only the advantage you are getting from it is to save your children. And so a lot of women stick to, abusive marriages, and they get killed in the process. So sometimes the mother decides to desert the boy so as to save her life. So these are complicated issues that we need to consider when we are building advocacy projects for boys without mothers. And so the next question is, what is the situation with the child or with the mother? What would be needed? So we need to find out what's the situation. Is it that the child has grown into a point of depression, or the child has gone into drugs? These are issues that we need to consider before we build the advocacy network. And I can remember that within my family, I have 2 boys. And every time I travel out of the country, when I attempt to speak with my daughter, she speaks freely. We are able to talk. But when it's time to talk to the boys, I observe that when I tell them, let me see your face, open the camera, let me see your face, they try to avoid me. And I kept wondering why. I discovered that they were using the avoidance syndrome to shield me from knowing how much they miss me. And so you find out that the ways in which these children react to these things differ. I could also recall my younger son who went for a presentation, and that was his very first presentation on the drums. And he came back with so much accolade. I was there to cheer him, and we were there together. Everybody came calling me, oh, is that your son? Is that your son? He's so good, and all of that. And he was so excited. He was full of emotion. We got into the car, and he was just all over the place. And I had to settle him down to say hello. As I drove, I was speaking with him. When things like this happen, you have to manage your success. I took my time to speak with him for almost 15 minutes till we drove to the house. And I found out that I had made so much impact in the life of the boy, because from that point on, he became so emotionally stable. His successes doesn't get him crazy. His failures doesn't, get him upset. These are duties that moms, hold the children. And I wonder, and I tried looking at it that, okay, as much as my husband is there, right there, doing so much, would he have paid attention to that particular instance? These are things that mothers see. And then my last point is about how. That's the H in the discussion, how. So how is the question that my section intends to address. And so I said, to launch mothering advocacy for boys without mothers, 2 goals will be prioritized. Number 1, it could be restorative. That is, dealing with the cause of the condition in order to reunite the boys with the mothers with their sons. So we may be looking at restorative advocacy. And 2, we may be looking at palliative advocacy. In that case, we'll be looking at how to relieve the pain without dealing with the cause of the condition. So those are 2 ways that we need to look at. So for each and every one of us who are looking at what to do with advocacy, launching advocacy for boys without mothers, we need to consider these issues. So we bring, and while we are doing that, we need to bring the issues to public knowledge. This that we are doing, for example, I'm sure that lots and lots of us are from different parts of the world. And we have people who have been working on women issues, girls issues. Not many have been working around boys issues. And that is why for us at Epocom Africa, we try to show how the problems of the girl or the woman dovetails into the problems of the boys and how it can happen the other way around. So we need to bring the issues to public knowledge. The media, religious groups, communities, there's so much that we need to do in that regard. We need to raise a team of concerned citizens. That's very important. There are people, until we started sharing on this platform, most of us will just come as experts and talk about things, not really discussing our private lives or our experiences on these issues. But coming together and discussing all of this has opened up our interest, and it has given us some hunger, the thirst to do more in that regard. Then we need to connect with the boy-child advocacy and the girl-child's future. So we need to be able to present how the future of the boy will eventually affect the future of the girl. If a boy, just like Ola was telling us, that for 2 decades in his life, he couldn't figure out what to do. And we find out that there are lots and lots of boys who lack emotion. I can recall a particular family where the younger sister was asking the brother, how does my hair look? And the only thing the boy could say is, it's okay. And I had to call them to say, come, you don't have emotions and you are going to get married soon. You should tell her it's fine, it's beautiful. Oh, it's not well made on this side. You can make this style, or this style doesn't fit you. This is what the girl is expecting from you. After all, you are the brother. So some of them lack emotions, and these are things that we will need to take care of when we set up the advocacy. So we also need to create and intensify boys network programs. And that is where I will pause for now, or let me say I'm stopping, and then we can take the conversation forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you bringing the perspective of not only what can we do as an individual, but when we're setting up an advocacy network or an organization, what are all the factors that we need to look at when we're dealing with the individual, and how are we going to work as a whole to help them? Thank you so much, Sharon. I would like to turn, it looks like we have Ronnie Joseph, you're back with us, thank you. And she is a consultant, certified success coach, mentor, and president of the Kindness Basket. I'd like to turn the time over to you.
Thank you so much, Christina, and thank you, Ola, for having me here tonight. It's about 3:15 in the morning and my eyes are still open, so obviously you all are doing a great job with educating me as well. I'm learning from you. As much as we share knowledge, we learn from each other. So it's a great privilege to be here with Ola. I'm also the Vice President of Education for a Toastmasters Club here. I belong to 4 Toastmasters clubs, and Ola came to one of those clubs meetings, and I'd love to invite you if you ever have the chance. Ola will send you the invite for our next meeting. Basically, I'm a humanitarian. As you can see, I'm the president of the Kindness Basket, and there's a reason why I transitioned my education life more towards humanitarianism. I've taught in South Africa, New Zealand, and here, so Kia to Amanda. I was a principal of a school in New Zealand, and I had to develop a lot of strategies to save the school that was dying. So I engaged, and I'm a networker. So I networked with the universities, with the charitable organizations, with the principals associations, and had to work really hard to save the school. So I learned a lot about the education system. I learned a lot about mentorship, mentoring staff. I learned a lot about procedures, policies, and everything that surrounds education as a whole. So eventually I became an accreditation officer here in Australia, and I mentor staff and graduate students, and then a careers coach and advisor, qualified and accredited. And so I basically loved mentoring children, and a lot of my counseling sessions would end up with me challenging kids, and especially boys. So some of the boys would tell me, I would ask them, so what would you like to become when you finish schooling? And they would say, I don't know, miss. I'm not good, miss. And straight away, I used that as an opportunity to challenge them. And I told them many times, I said to them, today I'm going to find the genius in you. And today we're going to find out where your pathway is, and you're going to help me with that. And so basically I challenge them to look deep inside them and to find value. And that's what we all, I think, between boys and girls are from Venus, they say, and boys are from Mars. So we have to treat them differently, and we have to nurture them differently. So in schooling, the systems in schoolings absolutely don't cater for both girls and boys. There's a generic system, there's a generic curriculum, and basically it's more geared for girls, and boys tend to struggle throughout schooling. So when I met Ola and I heard about his humanitarian advocacy for boys, I thought, wow, isn't that an amazing cause? And Ola's doing an amazing job integrating professionals like you all to come on this panel discussion and share knowledge, and then build and build and build. So Ola and I are working on several aspects of literacy and education to support boys. And one of the things we want to do is set up a youth leadership program. Now, I launched a Gavel Club here in Australia, and I train kids to develop their public speaking and their youth leadership. So we basically run parliamentary meetings, and so Ola was very excited about starting this for boys, because boys need to find their voices. And if they find their voices, they will be able to find a pathway and promote themselves a little bit and make headway. So today what I've done is basically prepared a little PowerPoint to link that to how the mother is one of the most important components, that actually helps a boy to make headway. So if you can give me sharing opportunities, that would be great. Thank you so much, Amanda or Ola. And I will share my PowerPoint. Thank you so much. I apologize, I knocked out my Zoom, just shut down on me for some reason, and so I disappeared, and I'm glad I'm back.
Glad to have you back. Ola, are you able to make her a co-host so she can share her screen?
Okay,
Thank you, Ola.
I'm coming.
And that will help me to quickly run through my points.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you, Ola. I hope this works, because my computer seems to be a bit... All right, there we go. So I know you are all tired, and it's been a long night, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. So basically today I'm talking about educating boys. I have 30 years of teaching experience, and I've taught thousands and thousands of boys in South Africa, New Zealand, and here. And I particularly helped one school to develop a boys education program, because my son was struggling, because they wanted him to sit still, and he was tapping the table with his pencil, he was rocking his chair, going back and forth. So he ended up with detention after detention after detention. They called me in, and basically the reasons for the detention was absolutely minor. And so I then asked the principal, can you tell me how you cater for boys in your school? And she said, we do the same for boys and girls. And so I said, I'm happy to run a staff meeting with you and help you develop a boys education program, and that's where my interest in boys education started. So what is education? Education really is the key to success. It's a pathway to freedom. It's an act of teaching knowledge. It's an act of receiving knowledge. It's application of knowledge. It's learning new things. It's about critical thinking. It's about sharing talents, and it's about catering for the needs of students and a diversity of students. And differentiation is very much part of education. But do we differentiate enough for boys? That is the question. Now, Nelson Mandela was my president in South Africa, and he was an inspiration to me. And he said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So if we can educate boys, they can make a success of their lives, and they can in turn change the world. They can become better fathers. They can become better sons. They can become better leaders, and they can change the world when they can become better men. In every boy, there's a little man. And sometimes as teachers, we forget that. Men have a lot of energy. Men need to use that energy, and men will excel if they use that energy. I hope this works. I'm sorry, we stuck. Now, Nelson Mandela also said that education is the great engine of personal development. It is through education that the daughter of a peasant can become a doctor, that the son of a mine worker can become the head of the mine, and a child of farm workers can become the president of a great nation. It is what we make out of what we have, not what we are given, that separates us from a good education. Now, this is Michael Gurian. He's an author on boys' education, and he's done a lot of research on boys' education. And he says if we want boys to succeed, we need to bring them back to education by making education relevant to them and bring in more service learning and vocational education. Now, lots of schools have the vocational education, but it's more difficult to get into it because of the selection process and the criteria, and sometimes schools don't offer enough options. Now, how is the role of the mother linked to education? One of the most beautiful bonds you'll ever see is that a mum looks at a son as a prince, and she teaches him how to love. And he watches her loving him, and he's able to share that love. By experiencing the love, he's able to change his emotions and also change the people he has a relationship with. So the mum has a very, very, very important role in education. She's actually the very first teacher in his life. He learns rapidly from her, and he follows everything she does. He admires everything she does. So she's the first teacher. And the one mum that really stands up for me is Pauline Einstein. Now, Albert Einstein was told by his teachers that he's simply no good. He was dyslexic. They told him he was a failure, he can't read, he simply needs to go and be homeschooled. The school will not have him anymore. So what did Pauline Einstein do? She got the letter from the school, she looked at it, and with full tears in her eyes, she tried to hold her emotions, and Albert asked his mom, "What does the letter say?" And this is what she said to him. She said, "Your school thinks you're so smart. You can't really learn at the school. They can't cater for you. And you are going to be one of the greatest men in history." And she basically said to Albert Einstein the total opposite. Years later, when his mother died, he found
We need to get it back.
I'm not sure if we lost her or if she's frozen.
Let's just wait a little bit. Maybe she will come back. Wow.
Thank you.
Oh,
So,
Ronnie, we lost you when you said years later he found the letter that had been written to his mother. We lost you right
I beg your pardon, my internet. Okay. Years later, he found the letter after his mom passed away. And when he read the letter, it basically said he was a failure and the school didn't want to have him anymore. Can you imagine that impact of that mom on Albert Einstein's life? Had she not taken him in, embraced him, loved him, put value into his life, a genius of a man would have been lost in the world of normal schooling. So that story is really, really amazing. And there's many people out there who are told you can't do this, you can't do that. And the mothers have impacted them and put love into them and have helped them to believe in themselves. And they become great people. So basically, I'm not going to read all of this, but what I was trying to quickly put together is how boys learn and what value they get out of learning in the curriculum. So adding technology, focusing on relationships, teaching boys about real life learning, and helping them to really strive by using their personal skills. So boys learn in different ways, and there's different learning strategies that we can look at. Boys think differently from girls. If you have a look at that visual, you'll see that boys are more mathematical, they think more logical, while girls basically love to read and they're more emotional and they're artistic. Of course, you get the odd, these are general, of course, but of course, what I'm trying to say is boys do think differently. They were created in a different way. But do schools cater for them? Now, schools are taught that, yes, we have different types of learners. We have the auditory learner, we have the visual learner, we have the kinesthetic learner. And schools mostly cater for the visual learner and the auditory learner. And very little is catered for the kinesthetic learner. So boys are more kinesthetic learners. They like to do tactile things where they can feel and touch and make and create and design and then make things move and watch and assess. And they're very logical and they're very smart. So engaging the multiple intelligence as well. Sometimes most schools choose activities that cater more for girls. And so I know boys don't like writing, but they have to sit for an hour in an English lesson and they're given a topic that they can't relate to and they have to write an essay about it. And then they assess on it. Then they have to write exams on topics that they can't really relate to. And then that becomes their score and that becomes their graduation certificate. And that certificate is used to go into the workplace to get a job. And so basically they're disadvantaged. I hope that works. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Okay, so in young adulthood, you have, for success out of school, basically you need to have several skills. You need work skills, you need employability skills, you need to have a good circle of friends, good influences, money management, personal development, but schools don't cater for boys in that way. So my passion is to create an education system that caters for personal development, financial education, and helping students transition into the place of work. Emotional intelligence is a very important part of boys' education. Boys' emotions are sometimes neglected, and a lot of that emotion is tied to their mothers. And if they don't have a mother in their lives, then they really are a mess. Now, I grew up in a single family. My dad and my mom split when I was 5 years old. I grew up with my mom and my brother lived with my dad. So we were very stable because my mom showed us so much of love. And I was able to excel at school, go to university and become something. But my brother, he was very needy because he was separated from my mom. And I can totally relate to what Ola is trying to do, is to create to fill the gap that has been lost with the missing moms. And so we forget that boys go through different stages. They go through boyhood, then manhood, and they try to become somebody in life. And there's a lot of pressure on boys because people are dependent on boys, especially as the father of the house. They are the head of the house, so they have to deliver. And so boys are pressured, but are they given the skills? Are they supported enough to hold those titles? And so these are the emotional intelligence aspects that we should consider: the self-awareness, the empathy, the self-motivation, emotional stability, managing their relationships. Therefore, there's so many breakages in marriages and separations. Integrity, self-development, value orientation, commitment, all of these are developed right from the core relationship of their mothers. Now, what is the problem with schooling? Well, it's the content is outdated for sure. History books are outdated. If you have a look at the date of publishing, you'll realize that the content is not current. And so it doesn't prepare boys to transition into the workplace and make a success of themselves. And especially that they don't have the encouragement of their mothers, that makes it even harder. The curriculum is restricted. It caters to the needs of the economy. Get a certificate, go into the workplace, get a job, earn money, and the cycle goes on and on and on. So there's no joy, there's limited time with family, and therefore boys are not prepared for marriage or for relationship or to manage their life. The hidden curriculum doesn't also cater for them. There's a lot of bullying. Boys go through a lot of issues, and I'm sure Ola is dealing with them. The education is selective with regards to course selections. There's limited choices for boys. Depending on the number of students that are available, they will cater for boys. And most boys have to source a better education somewhere else. And we did cover that it caters mostly for girls. And yes, and it's qualification driven, not skills driven. So this is a little excerpt that really speaks about sons, what sons learn from their mothers. So I'm going to invite someone to read it because you've listened to my voice for a long time now. Can I have a volunteer, please?
I will.
Thank you so much.
What sons learn from their mothers. Boys learn their earliest lessons about love and trust from their mothers. According to William Pollock, PhD, far from making boys weaker, the love of a mother can and does actually make boys stronger emotionally and psychologically. Far from making boys dependent, the base of safety a loving mother can create, a connection that her son can only rely on all his life, provides a boy with the courage to explore the outside world. But most important, far from making a boy act in girl-like ways, a loving mother actually plays an integral role in helping a boy develop his masculinity. Son will learn self-respect and confidence when you provide a loving and secure home base for him. When you can create a sense of belonging and significance for your boy, teach him life and character skills and practice kind, firm discipline, he learns to trust, to face challenges, and to move freely into his world. When you take time to listen to him and to focus on solutions to the problems he faces, you teach him emotional awareness and good judgment. A strong and loving relationship with a good mother can help a boy learn the skills of intimacy, support him in developing respect. Developing respect for other women, and prepare him for a satisfying relationship someday.
Thank you so much. That was so clear, and that was an excerpt from a website. The website address, my apologies, it's right at the bottom, and I can share that with you. It's a big article, and it really says a lot. So in closing, I'd just like to say education is the passport to the future for tomorrow. And for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. So I am so proud of Ola. You know, he's doing everything he can to prepare these kids for success, and he's trying to do it as fast as he could, and as he possibly can. And he's engaging people from all walks of life with different professional skills. And I'm so happy to be associated with Ola. And I've promised him that I will, extend my expertise and support to him as well. So education is what remains after one has forgotten everything he has learned in school. So schools really don't matter. Mums matter more than school. But school is obviously
I think
where your teachers loved you most, unless you had a favorite subject. And that's it for me. Thank you so much. A little bit of an emotional intelligence begins to develop in the earliest years. All the small exchanges children have with their parents, teachers, and with each other carry emotional messages. So this in itself, this quote by Daniel Coleman actually sums up the value of the mother. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, especially from the field of education where you've dealt with so many boys across so many different environments. And also, I really appreciate your emphasis on a mother teaches her boys how to love, and how that helps them be able to love other people and raise up another generation. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Next, we would like to hear from Professor Nicolette Roman, and she is South African Research Chair in the Development of Human Capabilities and Social Cohesion through the Family. Let's see, I believe I see Professor Nicolette Roman.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, there you are. My people keep rotating on my screen. So
Yeah. Thanks
okay.
for the opportunity. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks for all the input. It's just been amazing to listen to everybody's experiences. Just a personal note about myself. I also have a teaching background. I was a teacher with teaching children in primary school. And I noticed that the kids who had challenges at home were the ones who were struggling in school. And I decided that I was going to go back to study and look at whatever it was in the family in relation to the child. And I just fell in love. I fell in love with family and children. And my master's then focused on being a single mother in relation to the child. And I think that stemmed from my own background. I was raised by a single mom in a very extended family. So she always had support. We always had support. So I never ever felt that I didn't have siblings or I didn't have a father, because my grandparents were there too. So it was a good experience, a good basis. And when I got into the family research, I think things just came together for me. So I looked at the mother-child relationship, and then I went on full-time to study my PhD. My PhD focused on comparing single and married mothers and their relationship to the child's self-esteem. And that seems like a while ago, because then my research just boomed on parenting and focusing on mothers and fathers. So my chat today, I wasn't quite sure what I needed to talk about. And I did a search on looking at the child, the boy child, with the loss of a mother. And in terms of science, it is an area that is definitely under research. There's quite a bit on fathers, father-child. There's been more of a research that is done, more of an advocacy around that. So this is a novel area of research, and I want to thank Sharon for the referral and for Ola for taking me on board to speak about my perspectives, which is quite theoretical, because I was trying to understand the science around this. So bear with me as I journey through my talk. I'm not going to do a presentation. I'm going to talk through what I've written and hopefully provide some insights. So before I get into the topic about boys without mothers or mother figures, there are two important aspects that I started looking at. The one is about the developing self of a child in relation to others, and the second is the concept of a mother and the relationship with a child. So on the first point, there are different theories one could use to understand what the needs of a child is as he or she develops, because child development is so broad. One could use theories to explain how a child develops physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, morally. I would like to focus on the developing self or the developing identity of the child, as there are key points in this development which could either enhance or delay the development of the child. Focusing on the developing child is important because the development is unseen and only shows itself through the child's behavior at various stages. But it is reliant on the environment, and in this environment are parents, other family members, peers, culture, and society. Although this theory is very old, it teaches us a few things about the developing child in context. This theory is the psychosocial theory of Erikson. So Erikson's theory has 8 stages, and it covers the entire lifespan of the individual and presents the self and the environment as intertwining. The relationship between the self and the environment is reciprocal, because as the child develops, the environment provides tasks and challenges at particular stages to the child. The challenges or crises and tasks are revealed in each stage as complementary poles which the child has to overcome. So the task for the child would be to trust the environment while at the same time overcoming the challenge of mistrust. Once the child has synthesized or balanced the complementary poles, the child acquires a virtue at each stage, which becomes part of the self. So all those virtues together creates the identity of the child. Erikson believes that the self-identity will only be achieved once the child has attained the virtues of the previous stages. The virtues that the child should have attained before acquiring an identity is hope, willpower, purpose, and competence, so that the child becomes prepared to acquire the other virtues, which would be, after acquiring the identity, of reliability, love, care, and wisdom as the child transitions into adulthood and older. These virtues would not be effectively or successfully attained if the child has not overcome the challenges or crises posed by the environment in each stage of development. In order to successfully attain the virtue in each stage of the developing self or acquiring an identity, the child is dependent on the individual. These virtues do not show themselves together, but rather evolve over a period of time. For example, the virtue of willpower is preceded by hope and followed by purpose. These virtues do not occur at the same time. They are gained at different stages. So for Erikson, the self will develop optimally if in unity with the environment. So what it's basically saying is that the development of the identity is, while it's internal, it develops in accordance with the environment, in this case, the parents. So in terms of the stages, I'm not going to go through them, but what it basically then says in summary is that each child goes through 8 stages to adulthood, and in that process acquires virtues which together create the identity, and the identity then is played out as they become adults and later on in life as they become older. So in this environment are parents. Parents are central to Erikson. So I'm using parents as generic before I go into mothers. parents should provide consistent, predictable, and secure environments for the child's development, but he also states that the developing child helps parents to develop. If the environment is consistent, predictable, and always the same, the child will trust the environment and subsequently move on through life-forming relationships with others, for example, with teachers, peers, family members, spouses, and so on, thus establishing an ego strength. So let's shift gears a little to mothers and the mother-child relationship. By definition, motherhood is not easily defined. I know we've had practical definitions and we've had practical examples. And I want to also say I'm a mother of 2 sons and I have a granddaughter, but I've taken the stance, I suppose, based on my own mother, because that for me was the very practical example of being a mother. And I as a mother. I think sometimes mothers what they mean or mothering are embedded within what they are told about what motherhood is, rather than their own experiences and perceptions as mothers. To simply say that mothering is a process of managing and caring for children is to forgo an explanation and understanding of the depth of the responsibility, dependency, and emotional attachment between a mother and her child, making motherhood a multifaceted phenomenon. Motherhood incorporates 3 domains, which include motherhood as practice, discourse, and social identity. 3 domains are present for all mothers. They differ for mothers according to what they contain because of history, society, and family, which all play a systemic role in the formulation and maintenance of these dimensions. Thus, even though motherhood is about the physical and emotional care of and involvement with their children in practice, there is the added dimension of the dominant ideology of the good mother, who forsakes herself for her children and in a sense becomes the perfect mother. The challenge of social identity remains because socialization and societal dominant discourses tend to overwhelm the voice of the individual mother's experiences. Science focusing on parents show us that for a very long time, good mothering was critical for the healthy development of the infant, child, and even adult. We know that parenting continues into adulthood, and I think the research is slowly starting to emerge on that. Over a period of time, but to a lesser extent, a comparison was drawn between mothers and fathers in relationship to their children, and more recently, the focus is on the contribution of fathers and absent fathers. But of course, these are mainly considered in the presence of a mother. While we understand the complexities and variances in the concept of mother, we know that the mother-child bond often starts in the womb. It is the bond which forms the attachment between the mother and the child post-birth. But there is also the chance that there isn't a bond or that attachment does not happen for whatever reason, and there is a loss of the mom. It is in the absence of a mom that attachment theory was founded. So let's shift to the mother-child relationship. The theory of attachment is rooted in the belief that children who were separated from their mothers became delinquents because of maternal deprivation. Of course, the context under which separation occurred, as well as the circumstances in which the separation existed, were as important as the periods of separation from the mother. We know that parents who neglect their children, compared to parents who die, have differing implications for how a child develops. The first perspectives of attachment created challenges for mothers because there were unrealistic expectations of how mothers should interact with and care for their children. As time progressed, the attachment theory further developed through science and portrayed the different attachment styles between the mother and child, but in a more realistic and sensible way. The development of the theory was driven by the discourse at the time, and as with many theories, focused on blaming mothers. This discourse also has implications for working mothers and single mothers, but attachment theories provide some insight into the implications of a lack of attachment between a mother and a child. The three major attachment styles include secure attachment, ambivalent insecure attachment, and avoidant insecure attachment. So the perfect attachment is secure attachment. Parents tend to be more responsive to the needs of the child, which is especially important in the first year of life. These children can be described as less disruptive, less aggressive, and more mature than children with ambivalent or avoidant attachment styles. So as adults, children who have had secured attachments with a mom have trusting, lasting relationships, tend to have good self-esteem, share feelings with partners and friends, and seek out social support. For children who have an ambivalent attachment, as adults, they're reluctant to become close to others, worry that their partner does not love them, become very distraught when the relationships end. In terms of avoidant attachment, as adults, they may have problems with intimacy, invest little emotion in social and romantic relationships, and be unwilling or unable to share thoughts or feelings with others. It is important at this point to state that the reason for the mother not being present has implications for the healthy development of the child. Abandonment, neglect, and abuse create different types of traumas than the trauma of a mother who may have died or just leaves the child and the family. While the literature scientifically shows parent-child gender differences, especially mother-son relationships, science is silent on the phenomenon of the lack of a mother or mother figure on the outcomes for children, and especially boy children. There is abundant information on the implications of risk behavior of mothers on the outcomes for their children, especially in terms of abuse, neglect, mental health, and substance abuse. These outcomes include aggression, so this is the child acting out, which could become violence into adulthood, reduced social, emotional, and academic competence, and establishing intimate relationships. So in other words, more of a risk type of behavior as an outcome. And these are especially with boys. This is then my conclusion in the absence of science. Ideally, we would want a child to have two parents, especially biological parents. This is supported by science. Due to limited or a lack of science, we can use various theories to understand the phenomenon of loss and grief for any child, regardless of gender of the parent. We know mothers play an important role in the early bonding phase and create special and different relationships with their children. But fathers can also take on this role. This is especially clear during the pandemic where a parent has died and the other parent needs to step in. Support for the surviving or present caring parent then becomes important, and these could include mother figures in the family, in the extended family. There is especially a suggestion that in such a case that it's a known person to the child rather than a stranger if there is a loss of the mother. What is important is to create an environment of nurturing care for children at home, at schools, in communities. Nurturing care is a basic right of every child and encompasses health, nutrition, security and safety, responsive caregiving, and early learning. This nurturance creates a cushion for trauma or any other risk exposure and potentially creates pathways to violence reduction, societal adjustment, and well-being, and a way to achieve more peaceful families, communities, and societies. While we know that mothers and fathers have different roles in the family and have different relationships with their children, a loss of either has effects on the child. So as I've indicated, there has been more focus on the father than mother absence. How father absence is addressed is through father figures in the child's life, either through family members, in communities, or in schools. This could be the same principle for the loss of mothers. And maybe there's some more ideas to add to this. Furthermore, lest we forget regarding the discourses we promote in the political history of and motherhood, which plays an unrealistic solution of fathers, as well as the more modern family structure of same-sex parents. Can you still hear me?
You're back now. We can.
Okay, thanks. I would therefore like to emphasize that the nurturing and consistently responsive parent, regardless of parent gender, encourages secure attachment with the child, regardless of the gender of the child. In conclusion, this topic of mother absence, just as with father absence, is something which requires exploration to understand this phenomenon and provide subsequent interventions in order to
Nicolette? Are you there, Nicolette?
Yeah, I think Ben just went.
You're back. You froze for a moment.
Yeah.
Oops. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
We can. It looks like your internet connection is slowing and it's a little bit choppy. Was there more to your presentation? I didn't want to cut you short there. Are you there, Nicolette?
And she was almost rounding up her presentations already.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think without your video, we can hear you better. Were you wrapping up your presentation?
Yes, I was done. I'm hoping that you heard everything.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Nicolette. And I also appreciate your emphasis on how parents are central to the development of a stable environment, and that creates trust, and in turn helps you become a healthy adult and build trusting relationships. Thank you so much. I see on our agenda we have Q&A, and I know it is at the end of our time, but do we have time, Ola, to continue with some Q&A?
Yeah, we have. I put another additional 15 minutes, so we can use that 5 or 10 minutes. And because of time and the people that have been here, some are still in their night time. Probably they still want to go back to bed and rest for the night. I want to appreciate everyone before the Q&A. Precisely, we have Christina moderating for us today. It was meant to be Sylvia Ulani Matayoshi, and I want to recognize her presence with us right now. She was diagnosed of kidney infection yesterday, and she said she couldn't moderate today, so she made immediate arrangement, and standing in for her is Christina. So Christina, would you just welcome Sylvia for maybe 1 or 2 comments and thereabout?
We do have Sylvia as a participant, but she was not feeling up to moderating.
Yeah.
And I would like to thank her so much for asking me to step in. And Sylvia and I think it was fate that we came together. Her aunt lived across the street from my mother, and they set us up on an adult play date so we could meet each other. And that was over 20 years ago, and we have been friends since the moment we met. We knew we were destined to be friends. And Sylvia has done countless work in helping victims of human trafficking, being an advocate for women, children, boys, men who have been victims of violence. And she is a wealth of knowledge and a world leader and expert in her area. And I know I can always turn to her for expertise. So I thank her for the opportunity to let me be here. And a little bit about my background. I work as a school psychologist, and I'm also trained in counseling, and I've been in education for a little over 25 years. Working as a school psychologist, I specialize in children with disabilities, how to help identify what their needs are within the school system, and how to get their needs met outside of the school system. I also have specialized for the majority of my career in working with Indigenous populations of North America, which is in turn led me to working with Indigenous populations of many children, because once one person hears you do that, it spreads. And so I think that has given me a unique perspective that I may not have always had, having grown up in a totally different area. In a small rural farming town is where I grew up, and now I live in another small rural town, but with a different population. And I would like to know, do we have any questions for anyone left on the panel, or any comments that anyone would like to add? And I believe anyone can unmute themselves. I know some people are getting very tired. It's the end of their day.
So I've unmuted everyone. So if you want to say a word, we will appreciate that. But let me first and foremost thank everybody. I want to sincerely thank you for your time, your presentations, and it's so huge for me. I don't really know where to start. Thank you. But this is a call for humanity, and your joint efforts has revealed that we can do a lot with this type of discourse globally, and how we can collaborate on bringing a kind of relief to some of these boys. And all that we said will be put into a synopsis, and I'm going to reach out to everyone who made paper presentations. You can send it back to my mail so that we'll put this together, and in no due time, I will send the notes to everyone. I usually don't make requests, but if you are in the opportunity to help us do a fundraiser for BMAN, especially during this upcoming Giving Tuesday, we have the project of the literacy project. A whole lot of boys here in Africa having issues with reading. Just yesterday, we had a class, a literacy class. And after the class, a boy of 14, Isaac Stephen, walked up to me, and he has already learned how to make shoes. But while he was learning, they asked him to go back to school in order for him to acquire the literacy skills. But the school is being enrolled into right now is a public school. And he said, I don't learn anything there. Is there a way you can help me so I can go to a much better school where I can learn how to read and write? He's very serious. I share his video on my page. You can see him talk about his dreams. That's one of the boys I want to put back to school in January. I want to actually take him out of that school and give him a better life. To be honest, he needs that. And your efforts will help us so we can still give him a hope where there is still life for him right now, and the hope is still available. So we have several projects, but another thing I will request, I'm going to share the the giveaway page of BMAN. This is a campaign I just shared on the chat. So you can help us do a review of that chat on that giveaway, or you can help us set a fundraiser on the same page. Whichever little it is, we have a budget of about $2,000 to $3,000 before December, so that we can send this boy back to school and have the Lara's Mothers Initiative, where mothers will go out this coming Christmas to offer mothering opportunity to boys, especially who don't have mothers in their homes. So we want to bring these mothers in their various communities together, and it will go a long way if you can be of help. Having said that, I'm wishing you all the blessings of life today and every day. God bless everyone. So Christina, it is now up to you to end this, and the recording will stop now.